Greetings. Apologies for my absence. As you can hear, still a little bit. I have not been in the best of health, but I am back and I am ready to rumble. So we have Doomsday Clock number 3, which is in with Scottish football. I don't know whether Americans and stuff have this phrase, but you'll watch a game and it'll be said, it's a game of two halves, which sounds like an idiotic phrase, because of course everything is made of two halves, but what they obviously mean is it's quite a handy phrase to say, well, it was half and half of two extremes, and this is a book of two halves. Although I may actually, going off my notes, you might be better dividing it into thirds, but I'd say it's a book of two halves. But let's talk about the cover first. The cover is sublime, and the cover is indeed the whole thing here. I bought this series because of this cover. I wanted this cover. I didn't care what else happened. I wanted this cover, and here I have it, because in my mind, this scene is so much better than what we actually got. And it will remain so forever, untouched. I may even put it on my wall or something. I love this. If it wasn't for this cover, this book would be getting destroyed. I really disliked it. But let's praise it for a moment, shall we? Because Gary Frank's art is an absolute triumph throughout this series. It's Jeff Johns' writing that I don't like. And just look at it, like all the different textures. It's a masterclass. I did not know Gary Frank was this good an artist. I'd always seen him flashes of brilliance here and there, but he seemed like you're just sort of your quintessential American comic book guy, you know. Some people say like a Jim Lee knockoff, but no, it's because he's so quintessentially that style that it appears, they both appear the same because they're both so good at it. But like look, the battered old sort of cheap leather versus the new leather and carbon fibre coated gloves, and you can see how the seam of the suit is different to the line of the muscle, and it still looks like padding over muscle. It doesn't look like he's wearing, body paint. And then you've got this solid bat over here. I love the gold trim, and then all these different textures here on the cowl, and I love the idea here with they've given him a bit of flex around the eyes, but it's clearly not like makeup, like he's airbrushed it. And then that is clearly a very different texture to his face. It doesn't look like a second skin, it does look like a mask. So that's enough about that, let's move on. So this is the moment where I thought the book was really going to grab me. This is the moment where I thought the series had me, was they just beautifully captured the drama of the fight between Ozymandias and the comedian, Edward Blake. Absolutely perfectly captured it. It's not an imitation at this point. Gary Frank seems to have finally found his perfect balance between his style and not imitating Gibbons, but taking on what Gibbons was doing. And I thought, this is it. It sold me. It's the same stuff, the same style, if you will, but still recognisably a modern, unique visual style. And it's just stunning. And the choreography in this is also brilliant. The use of the 9-panel grid is finally starting to make sense. They are utilising it correctly. I like this fade out thing of clearly they use the panel to tell us that some kind of time manipulation is going on, because the panel and the gutters are the audience's perception of time within a comic book, and by distorting that, they've shown us there is fuckery going on with the space-time continuum. That's a really lovely little panel as well, well drawn. And here we go, look, see how it blots out and then it thins as we go to the next part, because he has been landed somewhere else. I would like to point out, if he'd been teleported here, yeah, that'd be fine, but if he'd actually been teleported like above the water and splashed into it, he still would have died from that height, but let's not go there. But yeah, and then we've got the 9-panel grid going here, and it works well. It finally makes sense that they're using it, and look, that is Metropolis. Instantly, you wouldn't even need to know what you were reading to see that panel and know you were looking at Metropolis. It's fantastic. This is the part where you tell me it's Gotham City or something, and I look like an idiot. But no, you know instantly it's Metropolis. And at dawn as well. It's just perfect, absolutely perfect. And here's the comedian, walking in off the beach, and hello Blake. I read that in Billy Crudup voice from the movie. They nailed it. I didn't like it to begin with because I always imagined Manhattan having this deep booming voice, but Billy Crudup actually nailed it. Like, he gave me that thing of I didn't expect it, and that made it better. And so I just completely unconsciously read it in his voice, and you seem standing over, and then, Doc. And it's an informal greeting because the comedian and him, they go way back. He remembers Dr. Manhattan when he was bordering on being a human being, back in Vietnam. And he knows that he's just a guy struggling with what he is, which is exactly what the comedian is. And I like that. So here we go. This fight scene, this whole scene, beautifully choreographed, perfect violence in that it's cathartic and it advances the story. Really well done. As I say, this is where I thought I was being grabbed by this series. I thought it had me, and I'll you're rooting for the comedian because he's a bastard, but Ozymandias is so much more of a bastard and a self-righteous one and more dangerous for it. And so this part here where he hits Ozymandias so hard, he doesn't hit the window. He hits Ozymandias into the window so hard that it breaks, and this is bulletproof glass, and it cracks. And then he even makes a joke about it because he's the comedian. I love it, and like, comedian is not taking this seriously. He's just enjoying the violence, which is him to a T. It's perfect. And see what I mean about this is very much a Dave Gibbons composition with a Gary Frank layer over it, and he's finally found that balance where it's working, whereas in the previous ones I didn't feel that was working for him. But he's definitely getting into it now. He's got this, and comedian looks fantastic. Ozymandias looks fantastic. The mastery of textures we talked about before. See that, like, clearly some kind of cloth, clearly some kind of plastic, clearly some kind of armor, clearly some kind of metal skin. Really well done. And this shows Ozymandias is kind of intelligent, and that he wouldn't have seen something like this before. This is cutting edge tech. He's from the 80s, so he's able to identify parts of this he can use. So he uses his old throw the cat at them trick from Watchmen, and that's quite funny. Classic Ozymandias using a distraction, then cutting the lights or whatever, and then. But comedian. This is the thing, is they were showing that comedian is so formidable, because and this is the thing I don't even think the Watchmen got across terribly well, was how formidable the comedian is. He is a guy, self-taught, mind you, as well, a guy who came off the streets and became a super soldier through nothing more than just mental and physical will, and it's brilliant. Like, Ozymandias is fast enough to dodge a bullet, right, and the comedian is fast enough to dodge a projectile from Ozymandias in the dark while distracted. It shows you how good he is. But they don't piss about. They don't let him steamroll over Ozymandias, because Ozymandias, and again, look at the difference between the visual styles. He's a big slugger. He's a fighter. He knows how to place his punches. He's not doing kung fu or even boxing for that matter. It's just he's that seasoned and that expert that he knows where to place his punches. Whereas Ozymandias, it's very dance-like, and these are classic sort of if you look at it, it's very stilted classic superhero attacks. Like from an 80s action figure, and I think that was really clever to put that in. But again, shows you the power. He smashes through the desk with his hand, and comedian. Ozymandias is fast enough to catch a bullet, and comedian is almost fast enough to shoot him. So that shows, again, comedian is a tremendous marksman also. And this shows you why Ozymandias is a superhero, because we never saw him do anything. We saw him do gymnastics, but we never saw him do anything like this in the comic. The way he smashes through the weakened glass, and gymnastically leaps across what must be an enormous gap from a huge height. Beautifully, and again, this is where the grid, again, it's not a 9-panel grid. This is why I didn't feel that the 9-panel grid was serving this story. It was like they were sticking to it when they didn't need to. This is one scene, but it's broken up by the panel borders, and it's the better for it, because this gives you a sense of place, and this gives you a sense of him moving freely through that environment, and it's absolutely stunning. And that's as good as it gets, folks. So We have Batman meeting Rorschach. Batman again doesn't speak like Rorschach. Rorschach speaks like a guy pretending to be Rorschach, but it's lost its charm that now. It's not fun or interesting anymore. It's just kind of difficult to get through, annoying, if you will, and they're kind of going for the this guy's mentally unhinged thing, and they kind of overdo it, like, oh, that's where I keep my fork, not where I keep my no, stop. This again, body language wise, what? Why is Batman tilting his head? The whole point in Batman is he never see these. These were kept. They were done initially because they didn't have time to give him eyes in the old comics, and it was kept because they liked the idea of a villain never knowing what Batman was thinking because his eyes were covered. So the idea that he would then give away stuff to somebody who's just snuck into his home, which is impossible enough on his own, by tilting his head in a moment of confusion, give away that in his body language. No, he wouldn't. He would stand there still, like he has been the whole time. This whole thing seems an exercise in why Jeff Johns just wants to shit on Batman, and I am a complete Batman fanboy, and I'll admit it. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. If you don't like him, don't put him in the book. Speaking of which, this is another problem, is where is Superman? Superman's disappeared. He's not been in even so much as mentioned since that last couple of completely bizarre and unimportant panels in the first episode. So here we have this sort of cringy, forced comedy scene of like Batman reading Rorschach's journal. He's not claimed to be Rorschach. He's saying it's Kovac's journal, you know. And Batman's saying, "Oh yeah, I'm only on page 4. You should go and get some rest." So there was just like, yeah, they do this thing that again, it's Watchmen by numbers. In Watchmen, they did this for reasons. In this, they're not doing it for reasons. His body language then mimics the body language of the next person we see. You are then attacked by a swarm of speech bubbles, and I will admit, I have read this book 3 times now. Still not read this page. Or that page. What I did was, I picked out that it was this guy speaking, read what he had to say, stuck with it. Because what they're doing is, they're doing the same thing as the Black Freighter. They're having a piece of media in the background playing, which is meant to foreshadow what's going on. And I'm not interested. I wasn't really interested in the Black Freighter when it happened. I found that very pretentious, but I read it and it was enjoyable. But this, I'm just not interested. They give me no reason to be interested in it other than it was in Watchmen. Like that's not a reason to be interested. You're making a standalone story. So we have the guy, his face revealed. Rorschach is some random black guy. Wow, okay. It's nobody we know, but we know what he looks like now. Fine. More from this film. So this film is presented in the manner that it might be like a flashback to his life, but we know it's not because it isn't. It's revealed that it's nothing to do with him. Marionette and the mime, we get a bit of insight into their abilities, because I was under the impression that something that really annoyed me was that they had powers, which is impossible because in the Watchmen universe it is only Dr. Manhattan that has powers. That's the whole point in it. The only thing that makes the superheroes and the supervillains special is the costumery, the excuse me, the costumery, the lengths they're willing to go to, and the mental state that they're in. That's what makes them the superheroes. In the DC universe, it's super abilities, be they self-made or meta-human. So yeah, they meet a Joker gang member, and they're like, obviously, they take exception to this, and we find this, I thought this was the whole thing. Remember I said he was metaphorically holding a gun to the woman's head in the last one, which I found really clever. Well, we find that it's not a metaphorical gun, which makes the one of the few things I liked about episode 2 actually not exist. So it's actually deducted points from its own thing. So yeah, he points the gun at, and sure enough, the gun actually works. But he's not got powers, which is okay because he had to go and retrieve that gun. So it's making me think it is maybe an invisible gun. However, I don't know. He shouldn't have powers. Neither should she. It might be technology. That would make sense because they were in a normal prison. So yeah, we get a pretty cool fight scene with them, but not enough to make me interested in them still. More of this assassination attempt about Luther through the news, which is a pet hate of mine, as you guys know. Then more of the old folks home people being a bit mental, and more of the ineffectual, boring noir thriller thing, which just keeps going on and on and on and on and on and on and on. It's also Christmas themed, so it's a month late. And yeah, some flashback from the Nordstag. And here is the coup de grace of Geoff Johns really hating Batman. Bruce Wayne wakes up, whatever his name is, and they mimic the scene, which I liked, of Batman says he knows where Manhattan is, and you're thinking, oh, that happened a bit fast. The scene of them, remember when real Rorschach breaks into the facility owned by Dr. Manhattan, where he lives, and the scene is set up exactly the same way, except Batman's throwing him into a mental asylum, which presumably, see this gate here, it would say Arkham Asylum on it, and there would be health warnings and safety notices all the way through this, and they both have torches. So I don't know how the fuck the guy didn't realise he was walking into a mental asylum, but there we have it. Then Batman locks him in. Having read the diary, he really realised that this man was obviously insane, and decided the best place for him was Arkham Asylum. And then we get our pretentious, pointless thing. Now, Batman is a detective. He is reading the diary of a man somebody who just broke into his house and deduced his secret identity, claims happens, and he lives in a world full of superheroes. He's a detective. So what he did was, he made no attempt to ascertain how the man entered his home. He made no attempt to ascertain who the man was. He knew that the man knew his secret identity and has now put him in a mental institution where he could speak to doctors and things like that, and probably provide a reasonable amount of evidence that Bruce Wayne is Batman. I mean, okay, who's going to listen to a crazy man? But it's still a risk Batman would never take. He makes no attempt to verify, like he doesn't get the Nordstag to write something down, because if Nordstag wrote this and presented it to me, I would want to make sure he'd written it. So I would make him write something, just anything, like, write down for Alfred how you like your pancakes, and check the writing. And you would see they're not a match, which would add weight to what the man is saying about it being evidence of some kind of mass murder. Bruce Wayne also allows this insane man to sleep a night in his own house, and, having decided the man was dangerous enough to put in Arkham Asylum, the prison part of Arkham Asylum, not just Arkham Asylum, the prison part, still allowed him to stay in his own house. I mean, like, for God's sake, are you trying to make me not like this book? Are you actively trying to make Batman look like a complete doofus? Because that was the thing. When I read Batman Earth 1, I thought that it made no sense, and then when I went and read about how Geoff Johns hates Batman, and it was a hate letter to Batman, then it made sense. And I didn't like it, but it made sense. And this only makes sense if you know that he hates Batman. So Superman is nowhere to be seen. Batman is a detective who does not do any detecting. He would also be able to tell that from the style of writing and stuff in the diary, if he was to really forensically go through it, that whoever wrote it was not lying. Whoever wrote it was not necessarily mad. Maybe unhinged, as Rorschach was, but not mad. He'd be able to tell from all the handwriting. If he did that, then he got it wrong, didn't he? Which he wouldn't, so it still sucks. It sounds like I'm going on about Batman for a little bit long, but that's because there's not much else to talk about. That opening scene was fantastic. It nailed both the characters. It was beautifully drawn, beautifully composed. It made sense. It was cathartic. So what are the problems with this? Well, I've discovered that the problem with this that Jeff Johns is having is Alan Moore never played favourites with the Watchmen. That's why everybody has their favourite Watchmen and can read Watchmen and be satisfied. There's people who think Silk Spectre is the coolest Watchman or Minuteman and enjoy her, and that's because she gets plenty of cool shit to do. There's nothing like this. In the Comedian Ozymandias thing, they play favourites. Comedian is the favourite. Now, I like that. That's why I enjoyed that scene. If you're an Ozymandias fan, you'd probably find that scene a bit annoying until he makes his daring escape. When Rorschach and Batman meet, Rorschach or Norstach is the favourite, and even then, Batman is unfavoured. Now, out of Night Owl, Comedian, Ozymandias, you're never told which one Moore prefers. You're never told he even likes any of them. And they all get their chance to shine, and they all have their flaws. Jeff Johns doesn't have that. He has his favourites, and he's letting you damn well know who they are. He's also invented two characters who take up a third of the book and who are completely pointless and boring, and who are so annoying that when they confront the Joker gang, they have me rooting for the Joker. I'm going to do a different video on this, about the way Sean Gordon Murphy and Jeff Johns do the Joker and Batman differently from each other, because it's fascinating to see the differences in their presentation, because I am now rooting for the Joker. I want him to come and kill the mime and the marionette. I'm so looking forward to it. It won't happen, because Jeff Johns, they're his babies, and it won't happen. We've seen that he plays favourites already. But now we're a quarter of the way in. I'm bored, I'm annoyed, I'm frustrated, and frankly, if I wasn't using this to learn from it and to make videos from it, I would be cancelling my subscription. This does not get a recommend. Do not buy this book if you haven't already. It's very obviously waiting for the trades, so wait for the trades in the bargain bin for a couple of quid, because it is not worth your time, it is not worth your money, and it is not worth the title of Watchmen. And I don't put Watchmen on a pedestal. I wanted them to use it. I didn't mind if it wasn't. If they just made it a little arc that was just the standard of a good Justice League arc, that would have been enough for me. I wasn't looking for the comic of the century. I didn't even get the comic of the month. So, yeah. I don't know. The other thing is, Conservative Chad made a fantastic point, and this is the biggest problem with this book, is this is meant to be Watchmen joining the DCU. But what it is it's the DCU in a Watchmen story, which is the exact opposite of what it's supposed to be, and that is a huge problem, and that's why the button worked, because it wasn't even the Watchmen characters, it was just alluded to. And I know I keep going on and on and on about the button, but I mean that was the thing that told us this was happening. The button was a DC Universe story, and then some Watchmen elements popped up, and it was great. Now, what I wanted was the same from this, but what it is it's a Watchmen book that takes place in the DC Universe, but it's about it joining the DC Universe, so it's going to be a DC Universe story once this Doomsday Clock is finished. So why are they doing it this way? That's why it doesn't work, because I'm seeing Gotham City, and I'm seeing Metropolis, but I'm seeing them through the lens of a Watchmen story. But that's why the Watchmen is set in 1985 New York, because it's a Watchmen story. It's not set in Gotham. That's why it's not set in Gotham, because it's not about Gotham. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe I've gone on a bit long. Maybe none of my points are valid. There are things that are. If you're really wanting something to read this month, then yeah, get it. You'll enjoy the art. You will enjoy some of the things that happen. You may feel that I'm being a tad unforgiving about the whole Batman Rorschach thing, but it's not Rorschach. He's created a new character, and that character's uninteresting. It's not the marionette and the mime are new characters, and they're uninteresting. Lex Luthor got a couple of lines in the last book where him and Ozymandias were masturbating over each other, how clever they were. There's nothing, there's no story, there's no heart to this. It's a plot. It's got a plot. There's no story to it. There's no development of these characters. There's nothing. It's very much a bridge between the two continuities, but it's not even a creative one, so why bother? I really don't know what the point in this book is, and that's sad. So I'll be keeping this. I will be keeping it, and I'll probably put it on my wall at some point. I'll maybe cut it out and do that. I don't know, but I love this cover. I'm glad I got this cover. I won't cancel my subscription. I've made up my mind. I'll keep it going because it's bi-monthly as well, so I'll be spending, you know, it frees up some quid, and I won't be. It seems worth it to keep going with this now that I've subscribed, but I am not recommending this. I'm recommending you do not buy this. And the story, a quarter of the way in, and fuck all's really happened, and I'm not sold on any of it. It's really quite disappointing, especially for a writer of the calibre of John's. And I don't want to slag him off. I like his other stuff. I love his Aquaman run. I adore it. And I really liked what little I've read of Lantern and Flash, so it's not that I dislike his work. And he seems like a genuinely nice man. He seems like a genuinely talented man. This is just not for him. And he's shitting on my favourite hero, and I don't think that that's an illegitimate criticism of a book, because if you're going to do a book about a hero and have him feature heavily in it, and you're just going to shit on him, and you clearly don't understand the character, I think that's a legitimate criticism. And that's not why I dislike this book. If everything else about this book was solid, if Rorschach was brilliant, if the two clown villains were brilliant, if Ozymandias had anything interesting to say, if that stupid noir film wasn't playing all the way through, I wouldn't care that he hadn't got Batman right. I wouldn't mind. It would be okay. But it's the fact that it's the only interesting feature about this book is the fact that I hate the way he's done Batman, and that is another reason that I am not recommending this book. So buy it for Gary Frank if you want to support Gary Frank. If you want to, I want HP Comic Collages to get a hold of this series, because I reckon she could come away with some beautiful artwork once this is done. But other than that, don't bother. Don't waste your money. I feel this has gone on a bit long. Let me know if it has. I'm sorry if it has. I'm really kind of just getting back at the swing of it with the health thing, and I'm going to have to go and take a big glug of water because my throat is like glass again. But it's been good to make a video again, and I shall catch you guys later on. Thank you for watching as always. Please leave your comments below. I'm going to do more on this. Elements that I liked, elements I want to compare to other stories, but this is your overview. And yeah, so thanks for watching. Leave me your comments. If I've been too harsh, then I do apologise. I hope you have at least enjoyed my little ramblings, and I will catch you next time. Thanks and goodbye.